Friends is a popular sitcom series that follows the lives of 6 adults living in Manhattan. In today's video, we will look at when Joey moved out in Friends Season 2 and Chandler briefly lived with another roommate named Eddie, but things didn't work out well between the two. We will also look at the time Phoebe claimed that she had a roommate named Denise midway through Friends, but there's evidence to suggest the woman never actually existed. What happened to Eddie? Chandler Bing, Matthew Perry, lived with Joey Tribbiani, Matt LeBlanc, for most of the episodes in Friends, but he also lived with another roommate named Eddie Manouk for a short period. This minor character, who was played by Adam Goldberg, appeared in just a total of 3 episodes in Friends Season 3. Although Goldberg's arc was short, he left a lasting impression with his unforgettable and terrifying performance. What then happened to Eddie after living with Chandler is up for interpretation, and we do have a few thoughts. Are Eddie and Chandler living together rosy or not? Season 2's, the one where Eddie moves in, deals with Chandler's situation after Joey left him to move to his own spacious apartment. At the beginning of their lives together, it seemed like Chandler and Eddie got along well, but in reality, they had nothing in common, especially when compared to Chandler's connection with Joey. The pair tried to bond until Chandler realized that his new roommate was a bit unhinged and unbalanced. An instance was when Eddie's ex, Tilly, visited to return a fish tank, and Eddie accused Chandler of having an affair and also killing his pet fish. The weird behavior didn't end there, but got increasingly alarming after stuffing a live fish in his pocket, and after he had a confrontation with Chandler, he also stole the insoles of Chandler's shoes. To make it more scary and disturbing, Chandler learned that Eddie watched him sleep every night, which was very unnerving to Chandler. Chandler got fed up, and in a bid to escape from Eddie's weird behavior, he decided his roommate had to move out. Eddie, however, declines to acknowledge Chandler's request for him to move. Chandler then decides to move all of his belongings to the bottom of the stairs. When Eddie arrives and finds out that the lock on the apartment has been changed, Chandler went ahead to pretend that he did not know him and managed to successfully convince his former roommate that he had never lived there before, and Eddie was never seen again in the series. What did Eddie actually suffer from? Many viewers of the show believed that Eddie actually suffers from undiagnosed schizophrenia due to his weird behavior. Chandler assumed that Eddie was mentally ill after Eddie imagined and believed that they both went on a trip to Las Vegas together. Making a character with mental issues a target for laughs in the sitcom would have been poor taste, so Friends never confirmed what was going on inside his head. Since Eddie was forced out of Chandler's apartment, Eddie most likely would have had to find another place. Maybe he returned to Tilly for help, or he found a new roommate in the city we don't know. Eddie never returned back to Friends, but Goldberg, Eddie's actor, did return to the wider franchise. The actor appeared in the spin-off series of Friends titled Joey, playing the role of Jimmy Costa, a friend of Joey's and the father of Joey's nephew, Michael Tribbiani. Although Goldberg had a short time on the set, he did befriend some of the Friends cast members, including LeBlanc, which helps explain how he wound up appearing in 7 episodes of Joey. What happened to Phoebe's roommate, Denise? Phoebe Buffay supposedly had a roommate named Denise for a short time in Friends, but there is some evidence that shows that Denise never existed. Lisa Kudrow played the eccentric and likable character for all 10 seasons of the NBC sitcom. Phoebe was a masseuse and also a self-taught musician and was the odd fellow among the bunch. Out of all the characters in the popular sitcom, Phoebe had the most interesting backstory preceding the events of the series. Of course, Phoebe's shenanigans and wild personal life were often the center of focus during the series, which made for great comedic moments. Let's look into Phoebe's living history and why Denise was most likely not a real character in the sitcom. Phoebe's backstory. Even though most main characters in Friends had a complicated family life, Phoebe Buffay, Lisa Kudrow, will definitely take the prize for the most dramatic and intense backstory. Phoebe learned that the woman she knew as her mother for the most part of her life wife wasn't her birth mother. And once the initial shock passed, she began at some point to build a relationship with her real mom, although her mom was mysteriously absent in the later seasons. For a long time, Phoebe believed that her mother was Lily, when it was actually one of her parents' closest friends. A fun fact about Phoebe was that her birth mother was also named Phoebe, and it was also quite obvious that she's her birth mother, as she acts a lot like her daughter. The duo ended up having a good relationship, and her mom was also there for her when she couldn't decide whether or not to be a surrogate for her brother, Frank Jr. But after that, she, Phoebe's mom, pretty much disappeared. Phoebe also had a twin sister named Ursula, but she doesn't really have a relationship with her, and she also had a very interesting but sad family life. Phoebe Abbott, Phoebe's mother, was actually a close friend of Lily and Frank Buffet, Phoebe's father. The three were in a relationship that ended with Phoebe getting pregnant, and after giving birth to Phoebe and Ursula, she left her kids to Frank and Lily, who ended up raising them before Frank left. Phoebe didn't have a good childhood. She was said to have lived on the streets of New York by the time she was 14 years old, and this was because her stepfather went to jail and her supposed mother, Lily, committed suicide. At one point, she lived in a burnt-out Buick LeSabre and also spent some time in Prague, where she stayed with an albino man. Shortly before the start of the events in Friends, Phoebe meets Monica and becomes her roommate. Phoebe couldn't cope with Monica's controlling demeanor and neatness, so she secretly moved out of the apartment slowly by transferring her belongings little by little to her grandmother's apartment. The arrangement ended up paying off, since Phoebe was also introduced to Joey, Chandler, Ross, and eventually Rachel. Let's meet Phoebe's roommate. During the Friends Season 6 episode titled "The One with Ross's Denial," Rachel was searching for a new place to live after Chandler decided to move in with Monica. Joey then offered Chandler's old room across the hall to Rachel, but she was turned off by the idea of Naked Thursday. Rachel had hoped she could move in with Phoebe, but Phoebe quickly interjected that it wouldn't be possible since she already had a roommate named Denise. Despite Phoebe's proclamation of having a roommate, Denise was never seen on Friends and was also rarely mentioned. More than likely, Phoebe made up Denise so Rachel couldn't move in and she could have her privacy. Why Phoebe probably decided to make up a fake roommate. It's very much possible Phoebe decided to make up a fake roommate so that Rachel would have to find another place to live since she, Phoebe, didn't want to house her. Phoebe's past experience of staying with Monica in the past had almost ended their friendship, which was why she decided to take herself out of the question. Phoebe was probably afraid and worried that the same would happen with Rachel had she allowed her to move in. Also, Phoebe might have been enjoying the fact that she was living alone since she was given more freedom and didn't also have to worry about adapting her lifestyle for a roommate. And even though it was most likely that Denise never existed, the notion of Phoebe having a roommate ended up forcing Rachel into moving in with Ross for a short time. This gave progress to the sequence of the drama between Ross and Rachel following their Las Vegas nuptials. This also led to the revelation that Ross failed to annul their marriage, and it infuriated Rachel, making her search for a place to live yet again. Denise was more of a plot device that drove the story in a particular direction before the tension between Ross and Rachel boiled over. In Friends Season 5, Phoebe actually mentioned that she lived alone, which adds up to our belief that Denise was most likely made up. A few episodes after Phoebe avoided allowing Rachel to live with her, she claimed that Denise ended up moving out quickly and unexpectedly. This piece of information by Phoebe gave Rachel an opportunity at finding a place to stay when she was in desperate need of a place to crash. While in actual reality, Phoebe pitied her friend and decided that it was more important to help a friend than to continue the notion of her fake roommate. The Friends series has been an amazing world to delve into and talk about. Did the fact that Phoebe made up Denise as her roommate come as a surprise to you? And were you satisfied with the way Chandler sent his roommate Eddie away? Do let us know in the comments section. Thank you for watching.